So that's how they make tea. Oh, hey everyone. Welcome to the Multi-Voice Entertainment. 'Tis I, Michael A. Grimm, aka the Multi-Voice. I have many voices, but one opinion. And I know, according to my shirt, I'm still gonna be reviewing something science fiction. But as I was doing some reading, I've been reading this Dynamite Entertainment version of Sherlock Holmes Omnibus. And I always kept thinking, how come nobody never did a science fiction version of Sherlock Holmes? And then I thought to myself, there really was! Sherlock Holmes in the future. So, besides being a science fiction with Sherlock Holmes. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be talking to you about Sherlock Holmes and the 22nd century, aka Sherlock Holmes in the Cyberpunk future. Now, believe it or not, this is why I always said this at the end of my review video. I always say I'm the multi-voice, I remember it so I can jog your memory. Well, this is something I'm going to jog your memory about. Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, because every time when I talk to somebody, people always seem to forget about that cartoon series, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. So, I decided to do the review of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. It might be long forgotten, but I'm here to refresh your memory here. But before I'm going to get to the cartoon, I'm going to get you in a little history that, believe it or not, they did plan a futuristic Sherlock Holmes as a spin-off, but sadly it didn't catch on. And it was a spin-off of a science fiction western. Wait a minute. Science fiction western? Huh. I think I heard of a science fiction western before. Something I reviewed years and years ago. Oh well, it'll probably come back to me. But there was another cartoon of a science fiction western called BraveStarr. For those of you who never seen BraveStarr, for those of you who don't even know about BraveStarr, I'm briefly going to tell you the premise. It's supposed to be in the future, in the 23rd century, and in the future we keep traveling through planet and planet and planet and start colonizing those planets. Still keep reminding me of that one that kept popping in my head. But in this one, aliens exist. In BraveStarr, aliens do exist. And most of the aliens and people, they start colonizing different planets, and they start living like it's the Old West. I mean, they do have technology and robots, but they still act like it's still the Old West. And of course, there is this bad guy who wants to create problems. His name is Tex X, until BraveStarr showed up, who is a Native American hero, who is a lawman, who has a combined power of 4 animals, and him and his partner, who is a horse who can stand up straight and carry a shotgun, battling against crime throughout the galaxy. So he's pretty much a galactic Lone Ranger, except he doesn't wear a mask. But besides Lone Star, they decided to do a spin-off of another legendary hero, so therefore they did Lone Star meet Sherlock Holmes in the 23rd century. And that's Sherlock Holmes in gray instead of brown. Now, the premise on this one turns out that Sherlock Holmes is going through the same situation as the that one story, The Final Problem, where Sherlock Holmes meets Moriarty and they fight next to the waterfall. Except this time Sherlock Holmes fell, and he didn't die. He went into a time vortex where he ended up in the 23rd century. So now he's in the future, and his arch nemesis Moriarty, which now Moriarty is existing there, he starts, he realized that Sherlock Holmes is still alive in the future, so he put himself in the cryosleep and woke up into the future. And on this version, he meets Minecraft Holmes, who is a descendant to his late long-distant brother, who is a secret agent this time. And also, Sherlock Holmes meets his own Watson, also known as Dr. Whitson, W-T, comma, I mean not comma, but the thing in between, S-N. Now, one thing about Dr. Whitson is that he is an alien, but one thing about him, he's from a planet where gravity is 10 times heavier, so now this Watson is 10 times stronger than a normal being. And when Holmes met him, he saw a lot of potential that he would be his new Sherlock Holmes in the 23rd century, and BraveStarr teamed up with him to deal against Moriarty, who is trying now to take over the planet that they're in. And sadly, when they made that episode, sadly it didn't catch on. They didn't make a spin-off out of it. It's just one of those episodes that it didn't catch on. I mean, BraveStarr still catch on until it ended, but they didn't bother to make the spin-off of Sherlock Holmes in the 23rd century. Until 1999. That's right, we're gonna party like it's 1999. Dum dum shh dum ba dum ba ba da ba dum bum bum shh bum ba dum. But that's right. I remember when I was young, when 1999 started, they decided to create something new and futuristic and science fiction. And that's why they always kept making, like, Extreme Ghostbusters and, Extreme Ghostbusters, and even Batman Beyond, where Batman is in the future, and cartoon, and of course the Men in Black series, cartoon series. So they thought it would be pretty cool if somebody make a cartoon series loosely based by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's books and create a futuristic version of Sherlock Holmes and the 22nd century. So the show started in 1999, ended in 2001, lasted for like 12 seasons and 26 episodes. I should get that on DVD. Wait a minute, what am I saying? Why should I get it on DVD? Well, you can easily find it on Tubi. It ain't gonna cost you. I mean, Tubi have Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century series in it. So you guys should just easily just go to Tubi and check out the series yourself. Until Tubi decided to remove it. I tell you, every time when I talk about a series that is available on Tubi, a couple of years later, they're going to remove it. Like, I mentioned Dick Tracy in my Dick Tracy review, and all of a sudden, Tubi decided to remove Dick Tracy. And now I hear that Hulu removed Animaniacs, the classic Animaniacs, and Pinky and the Brain, and Tiny Toons. But they still kept the brand new series, which my thoughts about the new series is not as good as the originals. But let's get to the story of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, shall we? Now, just like the BraveStarr episode, it starts in the same premise as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book, The Final Problem, where Moriarty meets Sherlock Holmes and distracted Watson, and then there was a fight between Sherlock Holmes and Watson near the waterfall, and then they fall, letting us know that Sherlock Holmes died. So now, in the 22nd century, we have New England. New London in the 22nd century future. And on this one, we have Beth Lestrade, who is a latest descendant of the Lestrade family. And you know Lestrade. He's the inspector who always asks Sherlock Holmes for help when he is stumped. Her and her Betazoid, a robot called Watson, starts helping him find this criminal who goes by the name of Martin Fenwick. And much to Beth's surprise, she found Moriarty himself. Now, the chief inspector thinks that she is delusional, thinking that Moriarty is dead centuries ago. There's no possible way that Moriarty is still alive. And thinks that who she thought it was Moriarty is somebody in a holographic mask. But here's the thing. It turns out that this Moriarty might be the real Moriarty, ready to create crime in the 22nd century. So now Beth Moriarty decided to bring Sherlock Holmes back to life. So, what she did, she found Sherlock Holmes' body. His body was in a vat of honey to preserve his body. So pretty much, Sherlock Holmes is in some sort of sleepy stasis in a vat full of honey. And the professor, finding his way to bring Sherlock Holmes back to life, they remove his body and put him into his lab, and therefore brought him back to life. And even he reversed his aging process, because he was like in his 40s when they found him in the vat. So he reversed his aging, so now he looks like he's in his 20s or 30s. Not bad. And now that Sherlock Holmes is up, he already realized that she is Lestrade because she has a remarkable resemblance to the Lestrade he knows. And he starts catching himself up throughout history and what has been going on, watching all the datas and documents about everything. And he was kind of surprised at how much has changed since he was in that vat. But he doesn't believe that that's Moriarty that they're dealing with. And of course, unlike the Sherlock Holmes series where Sherlock Holmes always says, "Elementary, my dear Watson," in this show, he doesn't say elementary, he says eyes and brains. I think that's his way of saying elementary, eyes and brains. But he does say some of the other quotes, like, if you take the impossible, whatever's left can be probable, must be the truth. If you unravel the impossible, whatever's left can be probable, must be the truth. And of course, at first he wasn't comfortable having this cyborg, this beta unit, by his side, because he's not comfortable with the technology. and he calls himself Watson when he thinks it's ridiculous. But Lestrade told the cyborg Watson to read all the Sherlock Holmes novel that she got from the archives. So he read every single one of them and put on one of those holographic masks, so now he would look more like Watson. And at first, Holmes was kind of reluctant having a cyborg by his side, but now he starts to realize he really does need him. Because even though he may not be the same Watson that he knew in the past, but his personality is a lot like the Watson he knows. So he feels more comfortable. And of course they found 221B Baker Street, which is actually a museum, but now becomes a new home for Holmes. Now, in 3 episodes they've done, they pretty much explained everything, and he even went to the cliffs where the last time he fell, according to Watson's book, The Final Problem, and it turns out they found Moriarty's body. He was frozen on ice, completely dead. And from the looks of it, there was a drill spot towards his hand. And then on the 3rd episode, referencing the Hound of the Baskerville, my personal favorite Sherlock Holmes story of all time, he just had a robotic giant wolf haunting the moon and starts kidnapping a science professor and a couple of kids. And that's when Watson told everybody that this Moriarty, he's not the same Moriarty since we saw his body in the cliffs. So pretty much, that Moriarty is a clone. And it turns out that Fenwick cloned Moriarty, and he tried to control him, but don't underestimate Moriarty's brain. Because they don't call Moriarty the Napoleon of crime for nothing. He might be a clone of Moriarty, but he still has the same personality and everything. A criminal who wants to rule the world with his crime waves. And of course, he also meets the group of orphans who are the Baker Street Irregulars. And they become his new Baker Street Irregulars. And they helped him throughout the rest of the case. Now, after all 3 of the episodes were done, all the other episodes are loosely based by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's book, but it's supposed to set place in the future, so there's a lot of techno stuff involved and a few techno babble. But out of 2 seasons and over 26 episodes, it's worth the watch. Like I had to say so myself, it is worth the watch. Damn. Talking about it, I feel like watching the series myself. Just turn on my television, go to Tubi, and watch the Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century series before Tubi decided to get rid of it. I love Tubi, but I wish they stopped removing the movies and shows that I enjoy that they had. I mean, for God's sakes, I talked my friend Eric into watching Dick Tracy before they decided, but it was too late. The movie was removed, without letting my buddy Eric enjoy the movie. Ass. Well, as my good friend Sherlock Holmes himself would say, "Elementary, my dear watchers. This is the most interesting case of all." Oh, and here's one thing kind of interesting. I did do a crossover of my Doctor Who meets Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, but I'm not going to be editing it because this is up to my dear friend Laura, who plays my companion Hannah. I made this episode as a farewell to my companion, so if Laura decided to retire from playing Hannah, this is the episode I'm going to edit. But even though she will retire for playing Hannah, I still have other characters for her to play. So at least she would quit playing Hannah, but at least she will play other characters in other series. And for those of you who are going to be asking me, no, I didn't kill Hannah off because, well, here's one thing I want you to know. When it comes to me and Doctor Who and the companions I enjoy watching, even though it's kind of sad to see the Doctor letting them go, but I hate it more if they kill them off. So I just don't want my Doctor's companion get killed off. I mean, I get a couple of friends who gets killed off, but I didn't want Hannah to die. I want her to live in a futuristic steampunk future. So I thought Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century would be perfect, since it is Cyberpunk, and that was the only Cyberpunk franchise I know. And I know some of you are thinking, Cyberpunk? No, I haven't played the video game called Cyberpunk. I'm talking about the Cyberpunk from movies and shows that evolve Cyberpunk, like RoboCop, Terminator, Blade Runner, and of course Sherlock Holmes 22nd Century. And surprisingly, the only Cyberpunk from Doctor Who is the Cybermen, but surely there's got to be a universe where people have synthetic mechanical body parts and even cyborgs among us. I mean, hell, some people would say that the Transformers is a cyberpunk universe because those aliens are robots. But anyway, if any of you like this review of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe. And if any of you have Tubi, check out Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. It is an awesome series to watch. And for those of you who haven't seen it in a long time, just for the hell of it, enjoy it. Anyway, I'm the Multi-Voice Reviewer, and like I said, I remember it so I can jog your memory.